This video is brought to you by my wonderful patrons and subscribers on Patreon and Subscribestar. These wonderful people are Jack Whitchurch, Master Stew over at Patreon. If you would like to see even more videos in the future and allow me to do this full time, please do consider donating to one of these services of your choice. Now on with the video. Do you guys remember Shamima Begum? Well, she is back in the news cycle, and woo lad, is this the kind of news she will not want spread around. For you see, things have come out about young Shamima, quite bad things, and it would be a real shame if somebody were to inform more people about them. So there are two articles that have come out about these alleged, I might add, revelations about Miss Begum. One was from The Independent, the other from The Telegraph, the original outlet that broke the initial story about her discovery, which led to her losing her British citizenship, both reporting these alleged bad things that Shamima had gotten up to during her time in the Islamic State. And it just so happens that what she did paints a whole different picture to the image that she has been trying to present to the world since she was discovered this year. In her media appearances and interviews in print, she's been trying to persuade people that she is no threat, that she's simply just a young woman who just wants to protect her now deceased son and live a quiet life. But she does not regret her actions. She does not regret joining the Islamic State, nor was she fazed by the dismembered corpses and heads of the victims of Islamic State. That is the rather bipolar image that she wants us in the West to believe her to be. Well, it turns out she's even worse than the image she wants to present to the media. It turns out she may have been part of the morality police, but let's just get through the article first, shall we? Shamima Begum, the Bethnal Green schoolgirl, served in the Islamic State's morality police and also tried to recruit other young women to join the jihadist group, well-placed sources have told The Telegraph. She was allowed to carry a Kalashnikov rifle and earned a reputation as a strict enforcer of ISIL's laws, such as dress codes for women, sources claim. The claims were at odds with Miss Begum's own account of her 4 years with the group, which she joined at the age of just 15. Miss Begum, now aged 19, has insisted she was never involved in ISIL's brutality, but spent her time in Syria as a devoted housewife to a jihadist fighter. Miss Begum, whose discovery in a refugee camp in northern Syria in February sparked a public outcry, said she concentrated on bringing up the couple's children. They subsequently died of malnutrition. Her husband, Dutch fighter Jago Rijdik, offered a similar story, saying Miss Begum sat in the house and that she would pose no danger to the British public if allowed back to the UK. So we have an alleged source that is accusing her of being part of the ISIS morality police, not the normal housewife that she wanted to present herself as. Her primary role was to walk the streets of Raqqa to make sure people conformed to the fundamentalist laws of the state. But The Telegraph has been able to piece together a different account of Miss Begum's life inside the world's most brutal terrorist organisation, and one which could complicate any possible return to the UK. She has been stripped of her British citizenship, but lawyers are planning a legal challenge to overturn the decision. Details of Miss Begum's alleged role in ISIL have come from two separate sources, including an anti-ISIL activist group, Sound and Picture, whose members lived under the jihadists' rule and closely followed its members. Some of the information has been confirmed by Western intelligence, which is understood to be looking into the allegations as part of a criminal investigation. According to Sound and Picture, Miss Begum arrived in Syria after crossing the Turkish border in February 2015. She was then taken, along with two other Bethnal Green schoolgirls, to the central city of Raqqa, which had become the capital of ISIL's self-declared caliphate. They were then sent to a madafa, or guest house for single women, where Miss Begum was married off to Rijdik. According to the activists, she then enrolled in Al-Talaya camp just south of the Euphrates River in Raqqa province, where she stayed for 3 months, receiving military and religious training. So the information can be somewhat trusted, as it does come from people from an activist group made up of former members who lived under the rule of ISIS, and their claims have been corroborated by Western intelligence agencies. Allegedly, she even enrolls into a training camp so she can receive military training. Again, this is something that is not too hard to fathom, considering that ISIS towards the end are adopting the use of female fighters like the Kurds were doing. And we do know that under Sharia, women are allowed to work and hold jobs. In a highly gender segregated society, not having female police officers, doctors, teachers, etc. is too illogical, even for a major religion like Islam. It is not beyond the realms of possibility, any of this, and it even begins to make her comments about no regrets and being unfazed by dead bodies make sense. She graduated to the Kansar Battalion, a notorious all-female police squad, which had other British members in its ranks, including Muslim convert Sally Jones. Miss Begum is then alleged to have worked for several months in Al-Hizbah, ISIL's religious enforcement unit. Most of the women in the Hizbah took up the roles on the voluntary basis, and the position gave them an elevated status within the caliphate. There were lots of young European women in the Hizbah. Ajiyad al-Qadir, an activist from Deir ez-Zor who founded Sound and Picture, told the Telegraph. Some of them were very harsh and the local population became very scared. He said Miss Begum carried a Kalashnikov rifle and had a reputation for being strict on women she thought were behaving in a non-Islamic way according to ISIL's punitive rules. Members of our group from Raqqa knew her well, said Mr. Qadir. If you get the chance to interview her again, you can ask her about an incident that happened in Al Amasi Street in Raqqa in 2016 when she was with the Hizbah. She shouted at a civilian woman wearing brightly coloured shoes and told her that was haram or not permissible, as this would attract the attention of men. The woman said to her, "So why is it okay for you to wear coloured shoes?" Shamima herself was wearing white and pink trainers. She will remember this, he said. Is it beginning to make sense? The bipolar, contradictory image of herself as the quiet housewife and mother who's also unrepentant and unfazed by dead enemies of Islam, who, by the way, she also believed the journalists were killed justifiably due to being spies. It seems that she was not a housewife and was someone who has deep convictions to the militant version of Islam that ISIS believed in, and that she volunteered to join this organisation. Again, you do not betray your country to another rogue state you're at war with if you're not interested in doing something other than producing babies. It also makes sense that she would be policing the women in particular because of the highly gendered structure of Islam and the fact that psychologically women do tend to police themselves more than men police women, and it seems that her hypocrisy and internal contradictions were even manifesting themselves during her time as a member of the Hizbah when she is punishing someone doing what she herself was doing, which really makes you think about the mental state of this woman. The fact that a lot of these women were European and could stand to gain a lot of power from joining this organisation. It's not only fascinating but worrying, and once again there are apparently witnesses that can corroborate this story. He believes that in her role, which paid somewhere between £500 to £1,500 a month, she likely ordered the imprisonment and lashing of local women in Raqqa who were deemed not to be observing its dress code or were caught travelling without a male guardian. During her time in ISIL, she is also thought to have been actively trying to recruit other young women across Europe. The Telegraph has been shared messages reportedly sent by Miss Begum to a number of girls, including a teenager from Austria, in mid-2015. She used the pseudonym Asma online before later changing it to Ahmed, meaning mother of Ahmed. Don't believe any of the bad things you hear about Dala, the state. It's fake. You have everything you want here, she told one of the girls, and we can help find you a good-looking husband. So she was not just being Judge Dredd in the burqa, but also trying to radicalise other Western women joining ISIS. Which raises another interesting point. How brainwashed was she if she was the one doing the brainwashing? As I have said, it is not impossible that she came to her own conclusions by her experiences, reading the holy texts, etc. I mean, when I showed in my last video that even her own community members and some local clergy do not want her back and believe she cannot even be de-radicalised, it does make you ponder. The fact there is evidence of this that hopefully the public will see eventually raises more questions. How long has she been doing this? To whom did she brainwash the young girls who she ultimately led to their deaths? By February 2016, she was left alone briefly after her husband, Raidik, was arrested and jailed by ISIL for attempting, with a group of other Dutch fighters, to set up a breakaway battalion following disagreements with some of his Emirati leaders in the Diriyah area of Raqqa. However, he was released a few weeks later and accepted back by the group. Miss Begum and Raidik moved from Raqqa to Deir ez-Zor in early 2017, just as the city was coming under attack from Western-backed Syrian Democratic Forces SDF, and while she was pregnant with her first child. It was after the birth that she was said to have transferred from the Hizbah to the women's military police, remaining with them, Mr. Qadir said, until the end. Experts say it was not uncommon for foreign women to have played active roles in ISIL beyond that of housewife, such as joining the Hizbah and receiving defensive military training. So not only was she part of the morality police, she was later a part of the military police, despite her pregnancy. And not only that, she was not even atypical, but typical. It makes no sense that a pregnant woman would go to a war zone with her husband if she was not in some way involved in the campaign. Due to the secondary role they played in the group's propaganda, it is always harder to find documentation to prove they picked up arms or committed the crimes compared to their male counterparts. Deborah Margolin, a senior research analyst at the War Studies Department of King's College London who specialises in women's role within ISIL, told The Telegraph. She said it was often these women who were most ideologically driven. The couple was among the last to leave ISIL territory, counting themselves among the most hardcore supporters of the group. Miss Begum admitted she had opportunities to leave, but did not take them. She said she respected the decision made by Miss Abbasi and the fourth London schoolgirl, Shamima Shamima Begum to stay, saying she only surrendered out of concern for her unborn baby. Miss Begum said the two were still alive when she left the final pocket of Baghouz, which fell in March. However, their names are not on the recent camp registration documents seen by the Telegraph, raising the prospect they may have been killed in fighting. So the most ideologically driven were those who were part of the Hizbah, and especially those from outside the Middle East. Again, referred to her interview. Miss Begum said in her first interview that she did not regret joining ISIL, in part because it meant she got to meet Raidik, but in later interviews became more remorseful. She begged the British authorities to rescue her from the refugee camp in northern Syria, where she gave birth to her third child, Jarrah, who later died from a lung infection, but instead her citizenship was revoked by Sajid Javid, the Home Secretary. It is thought Mr Javid did not consult either the Attorney General or the Solicitor General before making his decision, something that could leave him vulnerable in the event of a legal challenge. Counter-terrorism police are now trying to build cases against many of the Britons in the eventuality they are returned home. The UK and many other countries have been reluctant to take back foreigners who joined ISIL, in part due to fears that it would be difficult to obtain the evidence to successfully prosecute these individuals for crimes committed abroad, says Miss Margolin. That being said, proving that Shamima Begum joined the Hizbah would not only poke holes in her story of just being a housewife she added, but would be the first step needed to create a solid case against her that would hold up in court. Yes, currently this is under the backdrop of her suing the British government to reclaim her citizenship, to the point that the taxpayer is even paying for her lawyer. If the British government does have evidence, this will further help their case in keeping her out of the country. But this raises an interesting question. Are most of the ISIS brides in some way involved in the running of the state, or are they passive housewives? Can we trust a single word of any of these people? Are they committing taqiyya? Who knows? It's a question Europe will have to grapple with, so until next time, I'll see you later.